series introduces Youth Participatory Action Research, or YPAR, an approach that positions young people to lead research projects and take action on issues that impact their lives. YPAR groups identify and investigate a wide range of topics of concern to them, such as improvement in teacher-student relationships, mental health, or school lunch. After identifying a topic, youth are trained to gather diverse forms of data, for example, surveys, interviews, or art, and draw on this evidence to advocate for issues that matter to them. Sometimes, youth act directly to enact change based on the collected data through peer education or other forms of youth-led programming. In other cases, youth advocate to adults who have decision-making power to change policies, practices, and programs. YPAR fosters collaboration between youth and adults, enabling youth to develop key skills, advocate for change, and build agency. YPAR also supports adults in schools, communities, and other youth-serving systems to benefit from the insider expertise of youth in designing creative solutions to challenging issues. More information about the steps involved in YPAR is covered in our first module, What is YPAR? This is the fourth video in our series to support adults who employ YPAR to partner with young people. In this video, we focus on a core value within YPAR, sharing power with youth. We discuss adult and youth dynamics, why we should attend to power dynamics, and then we introduce a definition of power sharing and strategies for sharing power with young people within YPAR. Paying attention to power is important, as adults are often in positions of power over youth due to adults' age, role, or experience. In most settings, adults make the rules, policies, and laws that young people are expected to follow. Having this power is not necessarily bad. Sometimes adults have this power in order to keep young people safe, provide needed support, or to teach new information or skills. As we covered in video 2, as young people develop, they seek increasing independence and autonomy and desire respect. They also still need support and care from adults. Since one of the goals of YPAR is for adults to share power with youth, adults should be aware of the power they have, identify places they can share power, and try new strategies to allow youth to step into their power. When adults share power, youth develop decision-making and problem-solving skills through YPAR. Sometimes, adults use power in ways that silence young people. This can be viewed as anti-youth ageism, also called adultism. It's the mix of stereotypes, prejudices, and discriminatory actions that leads to unequal treatment based on age. Since youth and adults alike are often trained to see adults as decision-makers, it can be awkward to shift this dynamic, and it can feel unnatural, especially at first. Therefore, it is important to acknowledge the differences in power between young people and adults and to use strategies to share power. Power sharing means youth and adults decide together, on purpose and by agreement. Everyone knows which decisions youth make, which ones are shared, and how the group decides. This creates opportunities for youth and adult members of the group to learn together, set and work toward shared goals, and build authentic, reciprocal relationships. Power sharing doesn't mean that adults become observers of YPAR. Instead, they actively support and partner with youth, navigating when to offer support and when to have youth take leadership roles. It is important that adults engage in self-reflection to gain awareness of the power they have, because this power often enters the room with them. Sometimes power comes from the roles adults are in, such as teacher or coach or facilitator. It can also come from personal characteristics, such as race, gender, and socioeconomic status. It can be hard for both youth and adults to move between places where they share power and places where adults are still in charge. This is especially true in schools, where young people interact with many adults each day. Young people may believe they have less power and let adults make decisions for them. The power difference between youth and adults is not the only dimension of power in YPAR. Identities are complex and made up of many different parts of who we are. Power sharing can be somewhat complex, so here we break it down into different strategies. We start with reflection, then move into considering the physical makeup of the space, and how it can be organized to facilitate power sharing. Then, we consider strategies for power sharing, youth decision-making, co-learning of youth and adults, collaborative goal setting, bi-directional relationships, and transparency from adults. Finally, we discuss considerations for power sharing for youth with different developmental or cognitive needs. Because power dynamics are always shifting, reflection should be a part of an adult facilitator's regular practice. Think of this as looking at a mirror. Adult facilitators should build in frequent time to reflect on their actions and thoughts. Reflection questions are included in the module Planning for YPAR. Adults might also ask, what are my attitudes and beliefs about the youth I intend to engage? What roles do I have and what official or unofficial power do I have within those roles? How do I differ demographically from the youth I work with? How does this contribute to power imbalances? What are the ways that I hold power over young people? Get support from others. Sharing power can bring up feelings of vulnerability and uncertainty. Adult facilitators might worry they aren't doing it right. It can be helpful for them to identify a friend or coach who they feel comfortable sharing or debriefing with. This person might be within or outside of the organization. Now let's consider the physical structure of the meeting space. How a room is set up can really influence dynamics. Here are some questions to consider. How does the physical space allow for power sharing and collaboration? How does it restrict it? Where do people sit? Is there a power position within the space, and is an adult the person who occupies it? This might require rearranging the meeting space so that chairs are in a circle. Be mindful of where the adults sit in the space. Ensuring adults are intermixed within the space can help distribute power more equally. Are goals and agendas visible in the meeting space? Are materials, including technology, accessible to all? Adult facilitators must ensure youth have ongoing and increasing opportunities to make key decisions. In YPAR, youth take leadership roles within the research team, facilitating meetings, leading discussions, and coordinating activities, and are involved in a range of decisions. Include enough time in the work plan to deliberate, question, and revisit decisions. Be clear around decision-making processes. For each decision, will decision-making happen by a majority, by consensus, or must each decision be unanimous? Discussing decision-making early in the group can be a great way to build trust. Determine the different types of decisions young people will make, such as day-to-day decisions, when break will be, who will lead the check-in, what size the groups will be during group work, what activities will happen during a meeting. Larger project-level decisions, the topic of the YPAR project, methods of data collection, overall goal of the project, weekly goals and activities, what the product of the YPAR project will be, how findings will be disseminated and to whom, how to create closure or whether to continue the YPAR group. Develop and use a regular system to get feedback from young people about their experiences in the group. It is ideal if this is anonymous. When youth provide feedback, adult facilitators should be sure to summarize it to the group with specific steps they plan to take to integrate suggestions or ideas for improvement. Adult facilitators can also ask youth directly for what specific steps they should take to address the feedback youth provided. Power sharing involves co-learning. When co-learning is emphasized, adults are decentered. YPAR utilizes peer learning through small group work and mentorship, fostering youth leadership and confidence by allowing them to teach, learn from, and challenge each other. Adults can also learn from young people. In order for co-learning to occur, adults must step back. One strategy for decentering adults is moderate, don't punctuate. This means that adults facilitate group discussions with questions that have many different possible answers, or questions that are intended to stimulate dialogue. Then, allow multiple young people to contribute to the conversation without adult interruption. Ask open questions and let youth answer each other. Resist the quick, yes, exactly, after every comment. It cuts off the dialogue. Leave space. Your silence makes room for their thinking. Silence can be uncomfortable for adults. Sometimes young people take longer to speak up or formulate their response. Jumping in too early to ask another question, reframe, or respond makes the adult voice more central. As adults, we can practice sitting with our discomfort. Sometimes it can be helpful to count to 12. The group will get used to silence over time. Consider celebrating a young person's contribution to the conversation by quietly pulling them aside and acknowledging their contributions and the impact it had on the arc of the conversation after a discussion or at the end of a meeting or class. Co-learning can also occur when adults invite youth to teach them what they know. Leveraging existing knowledge allows youth and adults to learn from one another. An example of an activity that enables youth to share what they already know is creating a word cloud or concept map. Prepare but remain flexible. Often adults invest a lot of time and energy into the specific sequence and timing of activities and have a vision and expectations of how things will go. It can be hard to make collaborative goals or for youth to make authentic decisions if adults are unwilling to adapt or are too invested in the original plan. By collaboratively setting goals and creating team agreements together, youth and adults can track progress, celebrate wins, and build stronger teamwork. Co-creating the structures and processes within YPAR is a power-sharing practice. Here are a few ideas for activities and practices that can support a YPAR group in collaboratively setting and working towards shared goals. Co-creating group agreements that will enable everyone to show up fully in the YPAR group can be a great way to start. Here are some policies that youth and adults can co-create in YPAR. Cell phone usage, access to restroom or to the other spaces outside of meeting space, whether and how things will be graded, expectations around attendance and participation, how conflict or not following group agreements will be addressed. Adult facilitators can also ask youth to tell them what they need from a facilitator so they can show up and contribute. Tools like backwards planning enable young people to start with their larger goal, perhaps something like collect 15 interviews from students at our school in 2 months. Then brainstorm all the steps it might take to work towards that goal. The youth can then identify how they'll tackle those steps in upcoming meetings. This enables youth to start to control and plan for meetings. This can also look like sharing the calendar of planned meetings and getting feedback on activities. During brainstorming, adults should add their own ideas at the middle or end of sessions, not at the start. Celebrate throughout the project. This work can be long and youth may enter and leave at different points. Celebrating along the way brings joy and honors contributions to the process, not only to the end product. Supporting bidirectional relationships. Too often, relationships with youth feel unidirectional, but YPAR invites adults into bidirectional relationships with youth where the information sharing, learning, and respect go both ways. Here are some specific practices that can support bidirectional relationships. Mutual vulnerability. As an adult, show up with the same vulnerability you ask from young people. Be willing to take the same risks as the youth. Adults enable mutual vulnerability by participating in check-ins and activities alongside the youth in the group. Create expertise skill maps for the group. What is the expertise of individuals in the room? Consider creating an email address for the project that is not the adult facilitator's personal email. This way, youth leaders can access it easily. Let go of rigid behavioral expectations and punitive discipline. Allow young people to move freely and speak without raising a hand. Use group agreements as a way to create emotional and physical safety. Clean up mistakes. When you have taken power away from youth, admit it and repair the harm. Embrace curiosity and a desire to learn about young people and their inner worlds. A young person once shared, "Being you is all we ever want." So bring your funky, authentic, creative, or silly self into the space so young people can get an opportunity to learn who you really are. Being transparent about decisions and limits is part of power sharing. Adults build trust by being honest about their limits, giving young people tools and inside knowledge about how adults make decisions, and setting clear expectations so everyone stays accountable. Sharing about adult structures and decision-making allows youth to navigate adult-centered spaces effectively and to contribute meaningfully to the research process. Transparency might mean that adults pull back the curtain to explain how they approach presenting a topic, or why something is the way it is. In doing this, youth gain knowledge and skills so that they can replicate roles traditionally held by adults. For example, teaching how to facilitate, how to plan an activity, or how to get permission to use a meeting space. Adults must consider when they, as facilitators, need to exercise power either over the group or on behalf of the group. When adults can anticipate these situations, they can talk about them with the group ahead of time as examples of the limits of power sharing. When a facilitator has to take the reins, especially unexpectedly, they should talk with the group afterwards and use it as an example to prepare for the next time this issue arises. Power sharing might look differently depending on the developmental stage and/or learning or cognitive needs of young people. Younger youth may need more structure and more scaffolding in decision-making, especially at first. Older youth may need more context for decisions or may have learned to defer to adults. Strengthening trust enables older youth to take control more quickly. Youth with cognitive differences may need more structure for their decision-making. You could add visuals that represent the ideas youth are being asked to make decisions about. This can help make decision-making more concrete. This practice of power sharing can extend beyond your YPAR group. There may be instances where adults have to stand up for young people even when they are not in the room. One way to model power sharing even when young people aren't in the space is to bring more awareness to language so that it lifts up their humanity, creativity, and power. Words like kids and kiddos can be experienced as infantilizing or making a young person feel like a small child without agency. Check in with the group about the language they want to use to describe them. This can be an opportunity to demonstrate power sharing, transparency, and humility. When an adult facilitator is with their YPAR team around other adults. Recenter youth voices. Adults tend to defer to other adults to ask questions in decision-making meetings. This can be an opportunity to remind the adults what youth have shared or pass the mic back to the youth. Defer expertise to young people as often as possible. This might sound like, I am not sure, but let's ask the youth group. If adults are surprised or impressed by youth's ability to articulate their needs or to present, this can be an important moment to invite reflection. You might say, in my experience, most young people can articulate their needs when given the time to prepare and space to speak up. Or, while I think it's important to acknowledge the hard work of the group, I want to encourage us to listen to the substance of their ideas. This video focused on power sharing as a key practice in YPAR. We described that adults, especially those in the United States, are afforded power over young people. We introduced the term anti-youth ageism, which impedes power sharing. This video highlighted a definition of power sharing. Youth make decisions. Youth and adults learn from one another. Adults are transparent. Youth and adults collaboratively set, work towards, and celebrate goals. Youth and adults have strong bi-directional relationships. We hope that these strategies that we offer help adults move into more egalitarian relationships with young people. It can take some time to integrate these strategies into work with young people, and it can be especially hard in settings where there are structures that maintain and prioritize power over. Adults should give themselves grace through the process and keep leaning into their relationships. The series of modules is a collaboration between the Colorado School of Public Health, the University of California, Berkeley, and the YPAR network. Funding for this series is provided by the Bezos Family Foundation. The UC Berkeley YPAR Hub offers foundational materials, tools, and lesson plans to support your project. These resources focus on essential topics like youth-adult partnerships, community engagement, and promoting equality, which are vital to the YPAR process.